If there's one thing that YouTube has taught me over the years, it's that there is often an inverse correlation between the amount of work and effort that goes into a video and how many people actually end up watching it. I continue to be baffled that this, in spite of everything, is still my most successful series. Surely there must be something better that you could be doing with your time. Okay, fine. The fear of beards is known as pagonophobia. Pineapple will decompose if left alone. A light bulb, however, will never rot. On April 1st, 1993, in the town of Lead Hill, Arkansas, the sun set at 6:34 p.m. Charles Austin, no relation, is an American high jumper who won the gold medal at the 1996 Summer Olympics in Atlanta. He was born on a Tuesday. The first basketballs were colored brown. However, a brown ball can be difficult for both players and fans to see, so to increase ball visibility, Coach Tony Hinkle of Butler University came up with the idea to make them orange in 1957. Also, originally, you weren't allowed to dribble. Also, as of this video's recording, only 2 women have ever been drafted by the NBA. In the 1969 draft, the San Francisco Warriors selected Denise Long, a high school player from Witten, Iowa. She averaged 62.8 points per game in her senior year, and in the 1977 NBA draft, the New Orleans Jazz drafted Lucia Harris in the 7th round as the 137th overall pick. And, just in case you were worried, the Swiss Army disbanded its pigeon platoon in 1996. National High Five Day, celebrated annually on the 3rd Thursday in April, originated with 3 students who set a day aside to slap hands at the University of Virginia in 2002. As a bonus for participating, the trio gave out free lemonade. President Andrew Jackson had a pet parrot named Polly that was notoriously terrible, like practically Satan incarnate. When Jackson died, the parrot attended the funeral, but had to be removed because it started cussing like a sailor during the preacher's eulogy. Although IV is generally considered the Roman numerals for the number 4, in the Middle Ages in Europe, 4 I's were used until around the 17th century. In fact, you can see the notation on many mechanical clocks that were made around that time period. Bananas and doorknobs share a commonality in that neither of them is a meteor shower. Louisville, Kentucky is home to a 120-foot-tall baseball bat leaning against the Louisville Slugger Museum. It weighs 68,000 pounds and is made of steel, meaning you cannot legally use it in a game of Major League Baseball. This is Milton Bradley's The Game of Life. You may have played it before. Players move around a winding track in a small plastic car, with each spot on the board representing life's various stages, from choosing a career or attending college to getting married, having children, and retiring, all along the way earning money and collecting life tiles. The goal is to retire with the highest total wealth. Over the years, different editions of the game changed the career titles. Sometimes doctor becomes brain surgeon, or teacher becomes professor. None of these variations really affect gameplay, but it's a good excuse to try and sell customers a new version. Despite piling up plastic pegs in your car to represent children, I've noticed the game never punishes you for having more kids than your budget can handle. Olive Garden's dinner mints are actually rebranded Andy's Cream Mints. They have a custom design on top featuring a special mint flavor made exclusively for the restaurant chain. The kitchen sink business grew around $534 million in 2022 due to accelerated growth momentum in North America as residential construction activities experienced an uptick. The Guinness World Record for an unreturned and overdue library book is held by Sydney Sussex College in Cambridge. The history book, written in German, was borrowed in 1667 or 1668 by one Colonel Robert Walpole, father of Sir Robert Walpole, the first Prime Minister of Great Britain. It was discovered by Professor John Plum while he was working on a biography of Walpole and returned to Sydney, Sussex on January 16, 1956, at least 287 years overdue. The study of ancient pollen and spores is called palynology. It helps scientists reconstruct past climates and ecosystems. According to the LA Times, there are 300,000 items in the average American home. The shortest Best Picture winner of all time, Delbert Mann's Marty, actually runs at a perfect 90 minutes. It is commonly believed that the name coconut was given by Portuguese sailors in the 16th century because the three holes on a coconut looked like a human face. Coco means laughing face or grimace. The English word nut was only added later. As of this recording, the most recent video game released for the Nintendo 64 is 2023's Xenocrisis. Ketchup flows at a rate of about 0.028 miles per hour, making it one of the slowest moving liquids in the world. Heinz even developed a specific bottle angle to help it pour. Charles Osborne holds the record for the longest bout of hiccups, lasting 68 years from 1922 to 1990. The hiccups mysteriously stopped all on their own. If you take too many laxatives, the inside of your colon develops a leopard print. The inventor of Pringles is buried in a Pringles can. Seriously, Fred Bauer, the creator of the iconic tube, requested to have his ashes placed in one. I'm going to spend the next few minutes talking to you about coleslaw. It actually has a long multicultural history, evolving over centuries into the dish that we recognize today. The earliest known reference to coleslaw-like dishes dates back to ancient Rome, where people combined cabbage with vinegar, eggs, and other spices to create salads. The modern term coleslaw comes from the Dutch word koolsla, which means cabbage salad. The Dutch popularized the dish in the 17th and 18th centuries. They often made it by finely slicing raw cabbage and mixing it with vinegar, oil, and spices. Dutch settlers then brought their koolsla to America during the colonial period, particularly in areas like New York, which was originally a Dutch colony named New Amsterdam. In the New World, cabbage was easy to grow and widely available, making coleslaw an affordable and versatile dish. In the 18th and 19th centuries, coleslaw recipes adapted to include regional ingredients. The invention and popularization of mayonnaise in the early 20th century totally transformed coleslaw. Instead of just vinegar or oil-based dressings, mayonnaise provided a creamy texture that became a staple side dish for barbecue, fried chicken, and seafood meals thanks to its refreshing contrast to rich and heavy dishes. Coleslaw's versatility allowed it to evolve into many variations with regional twists like sweet southern-style coleslaw or tangy vinegar-based coleslaw. As cabbage and related ingredients are common worldwide, coleslaw has taken on many cultural adaptations. For instance, in Korea, versions like kimchi slaw incorporate fermented cabbage and spice. In Germany, sauerkraut often resembles a tangy, fermented coleslaw. Contemporary chefs worldwide have experimented with ingredients like kale, broccoli, or exotic spices to modernize coleslaw. From its Roman beginnings to its mayonnaise-rich American reinvention, it has become a beloved staple around the world. I don't like it. National Pretzel Day started in Pennsylvania in 2003. The most popular flavors of M&Ms are plain and peanut. The world's fastest built house was a total disaster. In 1983, a construction crew set out to break the previous world record of 4 hours and 18 minutes, and they did so by building an entire house, including plumbing and electrical, in just 2 hours and 45 minutes. The construction crew chemically altered the house's concrete to heat it up so that it would gel, thicken, and set in about 15 to 20 minutes. According to the LA Times, the home's eventual owners were not told about the quick turnaround time. Wouldn't you know it, the first night in the house, the hot water pipes burst, flooding the bathroom. The slab the house sat on was uneven and cracked from end to end. The roof was flawed, the paint was mismatched, the walls quickly buckled, the door frames were crooked, and faulty sewer pipes meant unpleasant odors routinely wafted through the house. It sold for $90,000, the equivalent of about $280,000 in today's money, but hey, anything in the name of efficiency, I guess. The world record for the longest chicken flight is 13 seconds, with a distance of over 300 feet. The Life 360 Church, located in the Chesterfield Village in Springfield, Missouri, used to be the home of the Palace Theater. And now it's not. My wife gets after me about not using coasters on our oak table to protect the wood finish. Here's one I pulled out of a drawer. You see that design? It has a name. It's called Moorish or Mediterranean tile, and it features intricate geometric and floral patterns. It uses repetitive motifs and symmetry. Moorish design greatly influenced later Spanish art, architecture, and decorative styles. Elements of it appear worldwide in Mediterranean and Spanish colonial revival, as well as Moroccan-themed decor. The coffee cup was a neat souvenir we picked up on our honeymoon years ago in London, featuring all the expected staples, a flag, a double-decker bus, even an umbrella. It's fun, but probably clashes with the coaster. A British cup, a Mediterranean coaster, and a solid American oak table. It truly takes all sorts to make a world. Of course, all three of them were made in China. The longest board game is The Campaign for North Africa, a strategy war game from Simulations Publications, Inc. It is considered to be one of the most complex war games ever published, recommends 10 players, and takes an estimated 1,500 hours to finish. Just in case you thought Monopoly was bad. In the 1995 motion picture GoldenEye, the character Xenia drives a red Ferrari during a street race in Monte Carlo, but in the movie's novelization, the car is yellow. This should not be construed as an endorsement. Tommy and Tuppence are two fictional detectives from the work of Agatha Christie. They premiered in 1922's The Secret Adversary, which was Christie's second published book. The dust jacket illustration of the first UK edition goes hard, but also kind of spoils the whole thing. Ibrahim Sadek of Iraq set the Guinness World Record for stacking the most M&Ms into a tower when he stacked 7 on April 7th, 2022. I feel like some kid on TikTok can probably beat that. Millennial dads are spending 3 times as much time with their kids compared to their fathers. Back in 1982, 43% of dads admitted they had never changed a diaper. Today, that number has dropped to about 3%. The Eiffel Tower can grow more than 6 inches during the summer. When the iron heats up, it expands, causing the tower to increase in height. Also in 2022, a river otter was spotted in the Detroit River. It was the first appearance of one in over 100 years, so woohoo! Car trunks now have glow-in-the-dark emergency release handles because a middle-aged woman and her husband escaped being kidnapped and later fought for them to be a legal requirement. Idaho man David Rush recaptured a Guinness World Record title by balancing a chainsaw on his chin for 37 minutes and 56 seconds. Before you ask, the chainsaw was not running while he did so. There is a diamond mine in Arkansas that is open to the public. Visitors can keep whatever gems they find. Over 31,000 diamonds have been found since it opened in 1972. Despite her mass popularity in the late 1930s for her cinematic work as a child actress, Shirley Temple dealt with persistent rumors that she was secretly a 30-year-old adult with dwarfism, gaming the Hollywood system to get rich. For some bizarre reason, the Vatican sent a priest to her home to investigate the claim. The strange experience is documented in her autobiography. Bananas are berries, but strawberries aren't. Botanically speaking, a berry is a fruit produced from the ovary of a single flower with seeds embedded in the flesh. By this definition, bananas qualify, strawberries not so much. Wombats produce cube-shaped poop, which prevents it from rolling away and helps them mark their territory more effectively. A blue whale's heart can weigh as much as a small car and beats approximately once every 10 seconds when the whale is diving. This slow heartbeat supports its massive size. The shortest grammatically correct sentence in the English language is go. The Dvorak simplified keyboard is an alternative to the traditional QWERTY layout. Designed for efficiency, it places the most commonly used letters under the strongest fingers. Despite its potential benefits, it remains less popular. Ever heard of the Hall of Eggs? Also known as the Clown Egg Register, it's an extensive collection of eggs with painted clown faces that serves as a form of unofficial copyright protection for performers. The tradition began in the 1940s for Clowns International when a new member registers with the organization. A replica of their personal makeup design is carefully painted onto a ceramic egg and added to the register, in an effort to make sure each clown in the world has a distinct look so no two clowns are too similar. Botanically speaking, tomatoes are fruits. However, in 1893, the United States Supreme Court ruled them as vegetables for taxation purposes. There's a place in New York called Eternal Flame Falls, where a small natural gas leak allows a flame to burn behind a waterfall. Visitors can see this unique phenomenon year-round. I feel like that one might lead to problems in the future. Anyway, in the small town of Talkeetna, Alaska, a cat named Stubbs served as honorary mayor for 20 years. His political career was persistently popular with locals and tourists alike. That's made up, right? No? There's a place in Western Australia called Useless Loop. Contrary to its name, it's actually a closed company town primarily involved in salt production. The first ever product scanned with a UPC barcode was a pack of Wrigley's Juicy Fruit gum. In 1974, a single Cheerio contains about 0.4 calories. The time it takes to wear down a lead pencil depends entirely on how much you write with it, but on average, a standard wooden pencil can write around 45,000 words before completely wearing down. This is a Kirkland's Signature chocolate chip soft and chewy granola bar, and as you can tell by the wrapper, it has 100 calories, which incidentally is the number of years in a century. The tendency of animals to turn left or right more frequently is known as laterality, and some species, like kangaroos, are overwhelmingly left-pawed. The word nerd first appeared in print in Dr. Seuss's 1950 book, If I Ran the Zoo. Giraffes have the same number of neck bones as humans, 7. Theirs are just much bigger. There's a town in Norway where the sun doesn't set for 69 days straight. It's called Hammerfest, and yes, the opposite also happens, months of darkness in winter. It might surprise you to learn that sloths can hold their breath longer than dolphins can. By slowing their heart rate, sloths can hold their breath for up to 40 minutes, while dolphins typically need to surface every 10 to 15. Peanuts aren't nuts, they are legumes. Before erasers, people used bread to remove pencil marks. The phrase "saved by the bell" doesn't actually come from boxing, it refers to safety coffins with a bell mechanism in case someone was buried alive. There's a word for throwing someone out of a window. It's called defenestration. It comes from the Latin word fenestra, meaning window. Ketchup was once sold as medicine. Get this, in the 1830s, it was marketed as a cure for indigestion. The 4 suits in a deck of cards, hearts, diamonds, clubs, and spades, were not actually standardized until the 15th century. Some fish can climb trees. The mangrove killifish, which lives in mangrove swamps, can survive for extended periods out of water by hiding inside the cracks and holes of trees, climbing them when the tide goes out. In Switzerland, it's illegal to own just a single guinea pig because they're social animals, so keeping only one is considered a form of animal cruelty. It's important to remember that you can sneeze faster than a cheetah can run. Sneezes clock in at around 100 miles per hour, while cheetahs max out at about 75. And in one of life's cruel ironies, Walt Disney was afraid of mice. Slugs have 4 noses, 2 to see and 2 to smell. A shrimp's heart is located in its head. A day on Venus is longer than a year on Venus. There is a McDonald's on every continent except Antarctica. If you cut a starfish in half, it might grow into 2 starfish. As long as the central nerve ring is intact, it can regenerate. Your tongue print is unique, just like your fingerprint is. No 2 tongue prints are the exact same. The Earth has more than 1,500 active volcanoes, and about 50 of them erupt every year. By the same token, the average person spends about 6 months of their life waiting for red lights to change. The Texas horned lizard can squirt blood from its eyes as a defense mechanism. A group of flamingos is called a flamboyance. You cannot burp in space, because without gravity, gas doesn't separate from liquid in your stomach. Inventor Ralph Teeter, who lost his sight in childhood, designed the cruise control system because his chauffeur kept speeding up and slowing down too much. I'm told by cat people that they may have healing properties, the animal, not the owners. The frequency of a cat's purr, between 25 and 150 hertz, can supposedly promote bone healing and reduce stress. On the other hand, you can use crickets to tell the temperature because their chirp rate increases or decreases based on the climate, a phenomenon known as Dolber's Law. Want to try it out? Count the number of chirps that a cricket makes in a 15-second time period, and then add 37 to get the approximate temperature in Fahrenheit. Neither flatworms, lobsters, starfish, nor jellyfish can stick out their tongues because, of course, they don't have them. There's a word for that feeling when a word has lost its meaning because you repeat it too much. It's called semantic satiation, where your brain stops recognizing a familiar word. In a totally unrelated note, you ever notice how weird the word desks is? Desks. 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 The longest wedding veil stretched farther than 63 football fields. Shakespeare invented over 1,700 words, and despite their different colors, Fruit Loops are all the same flavor. Hope I'm not ruining anything for you. The US government has a plan for a zombie apocalypse. It's called Plan 8888, and it was originally created as a military training exercise. Lego is, technically speaking, the world's largest tire manufacturer, producing about 318 million tiny rubber tires a year. Bear with me for just a moment as I explain the history of one of the most remarkable of human inventions, the television remote control. Before remotes for television existed, remote controls were already in development for other applications. In the late 19th and early 20th centuries, remote control technology was being explored for military and industrial use. In 1898, Tesla demonstrated a remote-controlled boat, which was an early form of remote operation. In the early 20th century, radio-controlled devices were developed for wartime applications such as guided torpedoes. But because television had not yet become a household staple, there was no need for a consumer-friendly version of the remote control. Of course, this would soon change. The first remote control for television emerged in 1950 when Zenith Radio Corporation introduced the Lazy Bones. This early version was actually wired, requiring a long cable to connect the device to the television, which was inconvenient and often caused tripping hazards. Seeking a wireless solution, Zenith engineer Eugene Pauly developed the Flashmatic in 1955. This innovation relied on a beam of light aimed at photocells on the TV, allowing users to turn the set on and off and even change channels. However, it proved unreliable, as sunlight could interfere with the sensors, leading to unintentional channel changes. A more effective wireless solution arrived in 1956 with Robert Adler's Space Command. Side note, I love that all of these get their own cool titles, like they're video game systems or something. Instead of light, this remote used ultrasonic sound waves, eliminating interference issues and making remote controls more practical. Inside the device, small metal rods produced high-frequency sounds when pressed, triggering commands in the television. While this technology dominated for nearly 2 decades, it too had its flaws, including accidental activation from jingling keys or coins, and a limited range of functions. By the 1980s, infrared remote controls became the standard, offering greater reliability and expanded capabilities. Instead of sound, these remotes used pulses of IR light to communicate with the TV. The introduction of universal remotes in this period allowed users to control multiple devices, such as VCRs and cable boxes, with a single remote. However, IR technology required direct line of sight, meaning that obstacles could block the signal and, yet again, hinder performance. So the early 2000s saw the rise of radio frequency remotes, Bluetooth connectivity, and smart remotes. Unlike IR, RF technology allowed remotes to work through walls and furniture, making them ideal for devices like cable boxes and gaming consoles. Bluetooth remotes have become widely used in streaming devices, offering faster response times and compatibility with voice control features. The most recent innovations have integrated Wi-Fi, smartphone application compatibility, even artificial intelligence, now enabling users to control their TVs with voice commands. Today, as technology continues to advance, remote controls are becoming increasingly sophisticated. Although a simple device in concept, the remote control has, over the years, played a crucial role in making TV more accessible and user-friendly, so that you can enjoy your favorite programs and movies with minimal effort. The dots on playing dice are called pips. Stop the clock for this useful information. The sponsor of whatever this is, Squarespace, stands ready and able to help you build a beautiful website and bring your creative ideas to life thanks to their all-new design intelligence, giving you access to easy-to-use tools so that you can build a site that feels uniquely you, no coding required. Whether you're showcasing your art, stories, or business, your vision will shine. If you want to start your own podcast, Squarespace has got you covered with audio blocks. Plus, you can sell stuff from courses to videos to music or memberships. So here's what you do. You go to squarespace.com to start your free trial. Then when you're ready to launch your site in full, head over to squarespace.com/AustinMcConnell to save 10% on your first purchase of a website or domain. All right. Let's get back to it. The mean half-life of an open jar of mustard in the fridge is about a year. The state of Kentucky has more barrels of bourbon than people. Brain Boy was a science fiction comic book series published by Dell Comics in the early 1960s. The character first appeared in 4-Color Comics issue 1330 in 1962 before receiving his own short-lived series that ran for 6 issues between 1962 and 1963, featuring a young man named Matt, born with extraordinary psychic powers, including telepathy, telekinesis, and mind control. He used these abilities to battle foreign spies, evil scientists, even extraterrestrial aliens during the height of the Cold War. Despite an intriguing premise, Brain Boy never became a major hit, and after 6 issues, the series ended, with Dell Comics eventually fading from the superhero scene and the character falling into the public domain. I revived the character and wrote an entire novel reimagining him for the modern day. You can check the links in the description of this video for more information. The phrase break a leg is a well-known theatrical superstition that ironically means good luck to performers just before they go on stage. Its exact origins are unclear, but there are several popular theories about where it comes from. One of the most widely accepted explanations is that wishing someone good luck directly was considered bad luck in the superstitious world of theater. Actors and stage crews adopted the practice of saying the opposite, hoping for misfortune to bring about actual success, warding off bad luck by using reverse psychology. Another theory comes from the physical structure of the theater. The leg refers to the side curtains on a stage. During the era when actors were often unpaid unless they performed, stepping onto the stage past the curtain or breaking the leg meant that they were officially part of the show and would get paid. Or you may subscribe to the bowing and curtain call theory. In some performances, actors would bend their knee or break a leg when taking a bow at the end of a successful show. If you performed well enough to get multiple curtain calls, you would break a leg repeatedly in gratitude to the audience's applause. Some linguists trace the phrase back to Elizabethan England, where the phrase break a leg was a way of expressing extreme enthusiasm or emotion. Some believe the phrase has roots in Yiddish or German theatrical traditions. The German phrase Hals- und Beinbruch, literally neck and leg break, was a common way, evidently, to wish someone luck, possibly borrowed from Yiddish-speaking actors in the early 20th century theater. While the exact origin remains uncertain, what I do know is that last year, while appearing in my first ever play, Murder on the Orient Express, multiple people working as stagehands told me, quote, "Nah, it's the side curtains thing," End quote. On a related note, you can check out a video in which I documented my experience performing on stage by checking out the links in this video. Cuba Cola was an entirely fictional soda brand created by Victor Fox, an aptly named notorious figure in early comic book history. Born in England and later moving to the United States, Fox had a long history of shady business dealings, including mail fraud, illegal stock trading, and trying to rip off the character Superman. By 1941, Fox tried another bizarre scheme, fabricating Cuba Cola as a fictional soda brand, in hopes of duping a legitimate beverage company to buy the brand from him. He hoped that by creating the illusion of a popular product, a real soft drink manufacturer would be eager to acquire the rights. After about a year of relentless fake promotion, Victor Fox abandoned the scheme entirely. You can watch an in-depth documentary about this subject by visiting the link in this video's description. You see what I'm doing? The world's most remote post office is in Antarctica, staffed seasonally by a small team who also count penguins for research purposes. Along those same lines, the British warship HMS Habakkuk was made from ice and saw only prototype development before being scrapped. It remains the most short-lived warship concept. A group of kangaroos is called a mob. The first word of the first chapter of the first Harry Potter book is Mr. The letter Q is the only letter in the English alphabet that does not appear in the name of any U.S. state. Disney parks have strategically placed trash cans no more than 30 steps apart based on their research into guest behavior. If the Amazon rainforest were a country, it would be the 9th largest in the world, covering an area larger than India. Despite the myth, goldfish can remember things for months and are even capable of recognizing their owners. At any given moment, there are about 2,000 thunderstorms happening around the world, producing approximately 100 lightning strikes per second. The fastest muscle in the human body is the orbicularis oculi, which allows you to blink. A single blink lasts between 100 and 150 milliseconds, and now you can't stop thinking about it. The word muscle comes from the Latin musculus, meaning little mouse, because early anatomists thought that flexed muscles looked like mice under the skin. That's made up, right? Oh, come on. The following is a list of the top 10 baby names for boys and the top 10 baby names for girls in the year 1970, according to the U.S. Social Security Service Administration records. For boys: Michael, James, David, John, Robert, Christopher, William, Brian, Mark, Richard. For girls: Jennifer, Lisa, Kimberly, Michelle, Amy, Angela, Melissa, Tammy, Mary, Tracy. A Major League Baseball typically lasts for only about 7 pitches before it's replaced due to scuffs, dirt, or damage. A group of otters is called a romp. Scotland has 421 words for snow. I'd like to speak seriously for just a moment. Freddy's Frozen Custard and Steak Burgers, an American restaurant which features burgers, hot dogs, and the aforementioned dessert, opened its 50th store in Victorville, California in April of 2011, and its 100th in Bowling Green, Kentucky in October of 2013. The very same month in which the Nobel Prize in Physics was awarded for the theoretical discovery of the Higgs boson mechanism, confirming a major aspect of particle physics. But I'm sure that's just a coincidence. Until around 1913, it was technically legal to mail children. Historians at the National Postal Museum found over a handful of instances where people literally sent their kids through the postal system because it was cheaper than buying a train ticket, and because the U.S. Postal Service's regulations about the practice at the time were vague at best. The most expensive book ever sold went for $30.8 million. It was Leonardo da Vinci's Codex Leicester, purchased by Bill Gates. Hydrox is a brand of cream-filled chocolate sandwich cookies that was introduced in 1908 by the Sunshine Biscuits Company. They were once the only cookie of their kind, until a small upstart called Oreo was created by the company Nabisco in 1912 as an imitation brand. It took a few decades, but Oreo eventually outgrew Hydrox in popularity, which resulted in Hydrox cookies being perceived by many as the imitation of Oreo, even though it was actually the opposite. I'm now going to talk about a piece of obscure stage theater technology from the 1800s, a time before video games, movies, television, and even comic books. Photography was still widely inaccessible. The primary source of visual entertainment was illustration. If you wanted something more immersive, you could always try the stage, but even that came with its own limitations. The technology of the time made it difficult to depict expansive or fantastical settings. A story set outside of a small, controlled interior required a great deal of imagination from the audience, and the more otherworldly the tale, the harder it was to translate on stage. While illustration allowed for fantastical imagery, they were, of course, static and lacked the dynamic element of narration. So in the early 19th century, a number of different inventors got an idea. Why not combine the best of both worlds, and began experimenting with a way to bring larger-than-life illustrations to the stage, making performances more action-packed and visually engaging. The result was the Miriorama, a moving panorama that combined visuals, music, and narration to create a more immersive storytelling experience. The concept involved an enormous, vividly painted banner featuring an uninterrupted horizon line. This banner was then mounted on two spools and slowly cranked backstage during a performance, creating the illusion of movement. The effect was, essentially, a rudimentary version of a one-take cinematic tracking shot. Actors performed in front of these massive panoramas, which allowed for groundbreaking theatrical innovations in stories like travel montages and even sweeping action sequences. It may seem archaic today, but back then, this tech was the equivalent of a Hollywood blockbuster. Miriorama shows toured the world, drawing massive crowds. A few original Mirioramas still exist today, the largest being an 850-foot-long hand-painted panorama depicting The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan, located in Saco, Maine. All of this is to say that the U.S. Constitution spells Pennsylvania wrong. One of the original copies of the document misspells it as Pennsylvania, but to be fair, this was an acceptable spelling at the time. The sound of Darth Vader's breathing was made using a scuba regulator. Along a semi-adjacent train of thought, the Apollo 11 astronauts had to fill out customs forms when they returned to Earth. Under departure, they listed moon. Under cargo, they wrote moon rocks. It's sort of amazing in retrospect that the television took just 13 years to reach 50 million users. But on the other hand, Pokemon Go hit 50 million in just 19 days. The world's first ATM was tested using fake money because banks didn't trust it. Customers got vouchers instead of real cash at first. In the 2004 song The First Time Me Eat Cookie, The beloved Sesame Street character Cookie Monster revealed that his first name is Sid. Nobody's watching at this point, right? I mean, I could say anything. There is a town in Alaska where everyone lives in the same building. The town, Whittier, has a little over 200 people in a 14-story building that includes homes, a post office, and a school. The blob of toothpaste on a toothbrush is called a nurdle, and in 2011 there was a lawsuit between two of the biggest toothpaste manufacturers over how it could be pictured in advertisements. Eventually, both companies resolved the matter with an undisclosed settlement. The song Macarena is about a woman cheating on her boyfriend while he is in the military. Yikes. This is a Japanese public payphone from the 1980s, and for the vast majority of viewers, you will likely recognize that it is pink. But in this era, Japanese public payphones were typically green. Pink payphones were less common and usually associated with specific locations or services, such as hotel lobbies or the front counter at a bus station. Americans of a certain age watching this video will think, payphones? Like, with wires? Yes. In Japan, government regulations stipulate that in urban areas, a public payphone system must be installed every 500 meters. These payphones are maintained as part of the public infrastructure primarily to provide reliable communication during crisis situations. Like earthquakes or other ecological disasters, mobile networks can become congested or fail, making alternative communication methods like payphones crucial. Maintaining public payphones serves as a critical backup to ensure communication capabilities at all times. Plus, just feels cool to use one, you know? The voice actor for Mickey Mouse and the voice actress for Minnie Mouse got married in real life. The United States once had a 5-cent bill. It was issued during the Civil War to deal with coin shortages. Russia is bigger than Pluto. Russia covers 6.6 million square miles, while Pluto is about 6.4 million. And wouldn't you know it, you can't legally name your child IKEA in Sweden because they ban any names that could be misleading or offensive. Depending on how you feel about big box stores, doing so might be the latter, the former, or both. The Library of Congress has the largest comic book collection in the world, with more than 140,000 issues. The original name for Google was Backrub, because it analyzed backlinks to rank its search results. The first person to ever be hit by a meteorite survived. Anne Hodges in 1954 was napping when a meteorite crashed through her roof and hit her. Tough luck. The first alarm clock was invented in 1787 by Levi Hutchins, and it could only ring at 4 a.m. because that's the time Hutchins usually woke up. A single spaghetti noodle is called a spaghetto. The opening paragraph of Frankenstein by Mary Shelley is as follows. You will rejoice to hear that no disaster has accompanied the commencement of an enterprise which you have regarded with such evil forebodings. I arrived here yesterday, and my first task is to assure my dear sister of my welfare and increasing confidence in the success of my undertaking. It's a good book. You should look it up. Throughout the 1990s, the company Panasonic produced a diverse range of vacuum cleaners, including upright, canister, and even innovative robotic models. Specifically, late 1993 and early 1994 models include the MCE44 with a 700-watt motor and the MCE47, which was a dark green variant with variable power. These models were widely popular during their time, with many households adopting them for their reliability and performance. Also from Panasonic, the Lumix GH4, which made quite the splash in 2014, as it was the first consumer mirrorless camera to shoot 4K video internally. One of the most bizarre stories to come out of Mountain View, Missouri is that of Buck Nelson, a humble rancher who once claimed to have been abducted by aliens. His story, filled with interplanetary travel, mysterious visitors from Venus, and warnings for all of humanity, captivated UFO enthusiasts for years before fading into obscurity. Nelson's experience supposedly began on July 30th, 1954, when he allegedly witnessed 3 disc-shaped objects flying over his ranch. After allegedly signaling them with a flashlight, one of the saucers allegedly fired a heat ray at him before quickly disappearing. Strangely, Nelson claimed the encounter left him miraculously healed of chronic back pain and poor eyesight. Months later, the UFOs allegedly returned, and this time they allegedly made contact. Nelson claimed the extraterrestrial visitors included a grown man named Little Buck, an elderly young man trainee pilot, a 200-year-old man named Bob Solomon, and an enormous 385-pound dog named Bo. They allegedly shared details about their peaceful societies and even invited Nelson to join them on a journey through the solar system. His alleged adventure took him to Mars, the Moon, and Venus, where he encountered futuristic societies devoid of war, prisons, or disease. According to Buck, these advanced civilizations live in harmony under the 12 laws of God for Venus, which they inscribed on a stone circle near his property. Life on Venus, he claimed, was particularly utopian, with clean cities, 1-hour workdays, and book machines that read their stories aloud while displaying accompanying images and music. Nelson's otherworldly experiences didn't end there. He later wrote a pamphlet detailing his supposed adventures, drawing international attention. He even launched a UFO convention that attracted true believers from around the world. However, skepticism grew as his claims became more extravagant. He insisted that the US government had tried to silence him, alleging that men in black visited his home and that military personnel were secretly studying his property. The aliens, he claimed, were deeply concerned about humanity's use of atomic weapons, warning that Earth could face the same fate as a previously destroyed planet. As the 1960s progressed, interest in Nelson's story waned. The advent of televised space exploration quickly clashed with his accounts, and his conventions soon dwindled. A failed fundraising attempt to build a radio station further alienated his supporters. By the mid-1960s, his influence had faded, and he eventually disappeared from public records. For a more in-depth video of his supposed claims, you know where to check. Rock band Van Halen used a rather strange contract for their shows that included a detailed technical rider outlining all the specific requirements for lighting, power, staging, and sound. Buried in the middle of this long list was a seemingly trivial demand: there will be no brown M&Ms in the backstage area upon pain of forfeiture of the show with full compensation. This infamous brown M&Ms clause is one of the most well-known and misunderstood pieces of rock and roll trivia. Many people assume it was just a ridiculous diva demand, but in reality, it was a clever safety measure. Actually, a test to see if the concert promoters were really reading the contract carefully. The band had one of the most complex and technically demanding stage productions of the time, with massive lighting rigs, heavy equipment, and precise electrical requirements. As a result, if a venue didn't follow the contract to the letter, it could lead to serious safety hazards, even fatal accidents. By checking for brown M&Ms in the dressing room, the band could immediately tell whether the promoter had actually carefully read and followed their technical instructions. If they found any brown M&Ms, it was a red flag that other, more critical details, like weight limits on the stage or proper power configurations, might have have also been ignored. If the band went backstage and found brown M&Ms, they would immediately conduct a full safety check of the venue. In one instance, they discovered that the venue hadn't reinforced the flooring properly, which could have caused serious structural damage when the band's heavy equipment was brought in. Today, Van Halen's tactic is a classic example of latent error detection, a way to catch small mistakes that may indicate bigger problems. Other examples of such methods include the canary in the coal mine. In the past, miners would bring canaries into mines as an early warning system for toxic gases like carbon monoxide because they are more sensitive to the gas than humans. If the bird showed signs of distress or died, it signaled the presence of dangerous gas levels, thus allowing miners to evacuate the area before they were affected. Or if you prefer a less gruesome example, the old coin under the floor mat trick for car or hotel cleaning staff, where a manager places a coin under the floor mat. If the coin is still there after cleaning, it means the staff didn't do a thorough enough job. The world's smallest park is in Portland, Oregon. It's called Mill Ends Park and is just 2 feet wide. Editor's note: Portland is no longer the owner of the world's smallest park. According to Guinness World Records, it was officially dethroned this year after holding the record since 1971. The honor now belongs to a town called Nagazumi in Japan, located just over an hour southwest from Tokyo. Their park's area is just 2.5 square feet, which is about the size of a few sheets of paper. According to Guinness, it meets the definition by featuring an entrance, a small bench, and some grass. Your move, Portland. The first recognizable socks appeared in ancient Egypt around 2500 BC. Archaeologists have found knitted wool socks from the 3rd to 6th century AD, designed with split toes to be worn with sandals. One of the biggest breakthroughs in sock history happened in 1589 when Englishman William Lee invented the stocking frame knitting machine. Before this, socks were painstakingly knitted by hand, but Lee's machine could produce a pair of socks in hours instead of days. However, Queen Elizabeth I refused to grant Lee a patent because she feared the invention would put the hand-knitted sock industry out of work, so Lee took his invention to France, where the first mass-produced stockings began appearing. By the late 1600s, socks became a staple for both men and women, with wealthier folks opting for silk or fine wool, while commoners were stuck with coarse wool or cotton. Lost socks are a global problem. A study found that the average person loses about 15 of them per year, meaning that you will likely lose over 1,000 socks in your lifetime. There's actually an International Lost Sock Memorial Day, May 9th, dedicated to all the missing socks that vanish in the laundry. The game Foursquare became a staple of American recess in the 1950s, spreading across elementary schools, particularly in the Northeast. By the 1960s, Foursquare had solidified itself as a mainstream playground game all across North America, with the US and Canada including it in their physical education programs. The basic rules, 4 squares, a rubber ball, and an elimination-based system, became standardized by kids themselves. The rules initially varied regionally. Some kids played with a single bounce rule, while others allowed multiple bounces before the ball had to be hit. House rules became a big part of the game, leading to dozens of custom variations like cherry bombs, smashing the ball hard into an opponent's square, and Around the World, where players rotate through different squares, and the World Foursquare Square Championships have been around since 2005. There are several proposals and campaigns to abolish the caps lock key. Caps Off is an organization devoted to pressuring hardware manufacturers to get rid of it because they view it as obsolete. Google has removed the caps lock on their Chromebook keyboards. Besides harming internet discourse, caps lock is often responsible for failed entries of passwords. You can fit around 3,500 Jenga blocks into a 2005 Ford F-150 XLT's cargo bed. Around 30 to 70% of honey in grocery stores is either diluted with corn syrup or processed so much that it no longer contains pollen. The last Monopoly World Championship was held in 2015. The annual salary for a plumber in Toadsuck, Arkansas is about $50,000. In the city of Anchorage, Alaska, Municipal Code Chapter 16, Section 90, subsection 030 makes it a crime for anyone to import, buy, sell, or breed rats without permission of the Anchorage Health Department. However, Chapter 16, Section 90, subsection 040 carves out a rather odd exception for children who were outside of Anchorage with a pet rat on July 28, 1983, in which case they may bring their pet rat back to the municipality. If you've ever wondered why the number pad on a calculator is the reverse of a number pad on the phone, it stems from their historical and functional origins. Early mechanical adding machines and cash registers placed 789 on top because it was easier for ledger keeping, whereas phones put 123 on top because the Bell Labs engineers who designed the modern push-button telephone in the 1960s conducted studies and found that it resulted in fewer dialing errors and was more intuitive for users who were transitioning from rotary phones, where the numbers start from 1 at the top. The two different industries independently arrived at two different standards, which have persisted to this day. There was once a state in the US called Franklin. Sort of. It was a short-lived attempt by settlers in 1784 to break away from North Carolina. It had its own government, but never got official US recognition. Eventually, it rejoined North Carolina and later became part of Tennessee. When ballpoint pens first hit the market in the 1940s, they were incredibly expensive, costing around $12.50 each, which is over $200 today when adjusted for inflation. They were marketed as revolutionary writing instruments that didn't smudge or require constant refilling like traditional fountain pens. I recently discovered that Hatchet, the best-selling young adult novel by Gary Paulson, is actually the first in a whole series. Lens caps are the most lost camera accessory. Ceiling fan blades are actually designed for aesthetics more than function, and gold-colored cars are statistically the fourth most often stolen. I also make good videos, too. Consider checking some of those out, if you can. You wouldn't make me do this again, would you? Oh, no.